So for this video, I'm going to show you how I created this super cool ashy blonde and how I lifted her from a natural level 2 or 3 with a faded brassy blonde from this to this. For the majority of all the colors that I do, whether it's blonde or even just a natural looking balayage, I always go through their hairline and do vertical foils. This prevents the hair from having a heavy, harsh grow out line as if you were to do like horizontal foils, and it creates those harsh, heavy like race car stripes. This helps them have more of a natural sun-kissed look. So I always do roughly like 2 to 3 really soft weaves wrapping around their head. This way, when they pull their hair up, they just have a really nice brightness all the way around. And if you have clients that complain that underneath, when their hair falls forward over their shoulders, they always say that it's so dark underneath, and this will ensure that they always have that brightness that they desire. Also, the lightener that I'm using is the Schwarzkopf Blonde Me with 20 volume, and it's honestly probably not as strong as a true 20 volume because I heavily water the lightener down. I feel like when it's mixed, it is really thick, and I found that I don't know if I'm mixing it incorrectly. I don't know. I usually just mix for consistency. But I find that if I don't water it down, then it like blows out the packets, and having a bleeder to me is unacceptable. So I always water it down. I always use Olaplex with all of my blonding services. And I find that this lightener gets such a nice, crisp, light lift. It's so even. There's lots of times where I've tried other lighteners after using this one, and I just feel like when I check my foils, it's still really yellow or really orange. And I feel like at this point, like if I would have used Schwarzkopf, it would have already been like super light. So I always go back to the Schwarzkopf lightener. It's definitely my favorite. So here I'm starting to go into my balayage, or more so Foilyage. I typically always insulate my foils. My clients generally like a really bright, light balayage, and the only way to really get that is to have an insulated lightener. So I always go through with foils and do my balayage that way. So I always do diagonal sectionings, and I weave it and then back comb. I feel like this really helps create a really nice blended balayage. Sometimes I feel like if I take sections that would just go like straight across versus diagonally, then you can always still see like a harsher line. So I definitely think doing a zigzag diagonal sectioning helps create the best blend and helps you get a really soft transition from darker to light. I don't know if you noticed, but when I fold my foils up, one thing that I do not do, or try to not do, is crease my foils really harshly. I gently pull my foils up. I lightly tap it when it's folded, and then I close the sides. I cringe when I see other stylists really tightly drag the foil comb over the top, completely flattening it out. And then when they fold the foils up, they take their thumb and like pinch the bottom of it and then secure it and fold it on the sides. That to me, I feel like when you rub your fingers under the fold and you pinch it and drag it across, you're basically like squeezing the bleach out in that crease area. And if you ever unfold your foils when you check, you'll notice in that crease area it's not lifted as much, or it's like got a darker, warmer spot there because you pinched the lightener out. So when I fold my foils up, I lightly tap it, and then I don't really super securely, super tightly fold my edges in. I just kind of lightly do it because the lightener is going to expand, and when it expands, you do not want it to like puff out of the foils, and then you're gonna get a bleeder. You don't want to pinch it too hard because then you're gonna get like line marks in your color. So I don't know, just don't pinch your foils. It like literally gives me anxiety when I see people do that, because all I can think about is how they're gonna have these horrible like lines in their foils. We finished up the bottom section and moved up to the top. We didn't do it as heavily in the top area though, just because we're trying to focus more of the brightness in the back, since it's been quite a while that she's had a full. You can see that we had really nice even lift. I didn't really have to go in there and reapply. This bleach just has really great lifting power. And then we normally do a heavy foil like around our hairline to add a little bit more brightness and some money pieces, but since it's fall, we're just trying to blend her roots in, so we didn't really do as heavy in the top area. For her pre-tone, I use Fanola No Yellow Purple Shampoo. This really helps keep her hair nice and bright and kicks out that yellow. I let this sit for about 5 minutes while I'm mixing her toner. And for her brightest pieces, I use Schwarzkopf 9519 with a little bit of 811. Now that she's been toned, I'm taking her back to my station and we're going to do her root shadow. But to start, I use Olaplex to saturate her ends. This will prevent any of the darker toner getting on the lighter areas and darkening them up. And this will also help build back her hair after having just been lightened. Now we are going in with her root shadow, and I'm applying just at the roots, and then if you see any more warmer areas, then I'm going to kind of drag it down, and then I do comb it through the ends. That way it kind of blends a little bit more softly. And for her root shadow, I am using the Schwarzkopf 8, 811, and 612. And you can see that these extra warm areas, you'll see later how much cooler it is. And it just really kicks out that unwanted warmth. Now that we're in the top area, I'm pulling out the front pieces of her hair. I don't want to run the toner all the way through there for the full amount of time. I want them to stay a little bit brighter. So I'm just tapping the root, and then the last few minutes, I'm going to run it all the way through the ends just to help it get a little bit more toned out. So you can see here that I take really small sections around the hairline. I don't want to take too large of a section and then deposit too far down in the root area. to keep her brighter. And then I don't drag it through the ends, just really trying to tap the root just a little bit to try to blend her roots in. And then once I get her roots all tapped, then I'll go through and comb through the ends. Again, leaving these pieces out to be blended at the last moment. That way it'll ensure, even though it's a darker toner, it's going to keep these pieces quite a bit brighter, and it will retain that lightness that everybody loves around their face. So here's the final result for her hair. I love how this turned out. It blends perfectly into her roots. She still has tons of dimension. She's nice and bright, super ashy. We both love how this looks. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you learned something and enjoyed watching this, and thanks again for your time.